Good morning. I want to invite you into a conversation you may not even know you've been needing to have. Um, it starts with a few innocent phrases, phrases we've all heard at some point in our life growing up. Um, you won't like that. That's too dangerous. That's not for you. Be careful. You might get hurt. Those phrases sound familiar. Those are the kind of things that said by people who loved us. They meant well, they wanted to protect us. But here's the thing, when you hear something enough times in childhood, it doesn't stay as a suggestion, it becomes truth. And it's not just any truth, it becomes a core belief, core belief within you. So let me give you an example. This woman, she's a super creative, smart, wildly intuitive. Uh, Used to love dancing as a kid. She would choreograph, her little routines in her bedroom, full of joy and expression. But one day, a family member said to her, "Hey, that's cute, but you're really not a dancer. You're more the quiet type." Now, they didn't mean to hurt her, but here's what happens next. She never danced in public again. She stopped signing up for those talent shows she enjoyed. She stopped even moving freely when music came on. She didn't dance anymore. Um, Fast forward 20 years, she's in a high level corporate job. She doesn't really enjoy it, and she's wondering why she never felt really alive. Um, and one day in a coaching session, she whispers, "I think I've been living by a script someone else wrote." Does it sound familiar? So I want to ask you, whose script are you living by? Because here's what happens. We hear something enough times, be careful, that's not for you, you'll probably get hurt. And that becomes our operating system, you know? Um, and then we grow up and we wonder, you know, why do I doubt myself before I even try? You know, why do I stop short of going all in? You know, why do I play small even when I know I have more in me? Why? Why do I do these things? And it's not because you're lazy. It's not because you're unmotivated, and it's certainly not because you're not smart enough. What it is it's because your brain is still protecting you from the dangers that doesn't exist anymore. From a childhood fear that quietly evolved into an adult belief, one of your core beliefs. So let's get a little nerdy for a moment. Our brains, they're wired for safety, not for success. From a young age, the brain starts forming new, neural pathways based on what gets rewarded and what gets punished. So if taking a risk got you a warning, your brain logged that as, risks are unsafe. If you spoke up and you were shut down, self expression equals danger. That wiring doesn't just go away because we get older. So unless we can consciously rewrite it, it will keep running quietly in the background, like a glitchy operating system. And the saddest part is, most people never even realize it. They think their limits are facts. When in reality, they're just unexamined beliefs. But here's the good news: anything that was programmed can be reprogrammed. So you're not broken, you're not too late, and you're not stuck. You're just running an old script, an old operating system. And the moment you become aware of it, the moment you say, "Hey, maybe that story isn't mine," you've already begun to rewrite it. You get to choose again. You get to decide who you are, not based on someone else's fears, not based on parents' protection, but based on your truth, based on your desires, and based on your potential. Um, because you're not that little kid anymore. You're the adult now. You're the author. You get to edit the story that you tell yourself. So here's what I want you to do. When you leave this talk this morning, or whether you're watching the replay, um, whether you're driving home or you're cooking dinner, scrolling through your feed late at night, um, take a breath and ask yourself this one question. You know, what beliefs am I still living by that I didn't choose? And then, um, what would my life look if I let all of that go? Um, would you finally start the business you wanted? Speak your truth? Um, you know, would you write the book you've always wanted to? Love out loud? Because your real life, the free one, the whole one, it's on the other side of that story. So let today be the day you start flipping the script and, say it out loud, write it down, tell someone, tell yourself. Because awareness is the first breakthrough. And you, like I said, you're not broken, you're becoming. Peace.